Hello, I'm Tom Lobianco, national politics reporter and co-founder for 24sight News. And I'm joined today by my colleague, Washington correspondent Warren Rojas, and also co-founder of 24sight News. And we have one of the best politics reporters this campaign cycle, Kadia Goba, with us. And Kadia is working at Semafor, and she's been doing a great job this cycle. And she's here to fill us in on what the heck is happening right now in this race because the 4th of July week only made things crazier. Happy birthday, America. Uh, uh,
Thanks for having me, Tom and Warren.
No, the pleasure is all ours.
So, so are the Democrats shooting their fireworks inside the tent or outside the tent right now?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I've been saying this since I came to DC in 2019, but we are in unprecedented times. Um, Here we have the presumptive nominee, Democratic nominee for president, and members of Congress are quietly and some people overtly and publicly calling for him to step down ever since he had a really bad uh, debate uh, against Donald Trump. People just don't feel like he is the person here. Now, whether that changes anything is a different story. And I keep reminding people when I write these pieces. But the point is that there are, members of Congress as well as donors saying this privately and publicly. It's pretty interesting.
Yeah,
Have you ever? Yeah.
especially at this stage in the race when they haven't even formally, neither has been formally nominated, but already both sides are just like, nope, we want both these guys to drop out. Pick anyone else.
I
Anyone
mean,
else.
yeah, it's pretty chaotic, but also the process in which this is happening or playing out. We think about all these various letters that never actually came, the letters that were allegedly
Yes.
circulating throughout Congress, but
Yes.
never actually materialized. And then yesterday, that whole Warren meeting, Senator Warner's meeting from Virginia that was supposed to happen and it didn't happen. If your listeners don't know, but this senator from Virginia is reportedly gathering a group of senators that are going to urge Joe Biden to leave. But I texted someone when that happened yesterday, when it was reported that he wasn't going to have this meeting. I texted someone, this is the most chaotic coup I've ever seen in history.
It's so crazy because it's rolling along and getting nowhere. Of like, what is this? Is this like the stagflation of coups?
Yeah. I mean, it's just pretty interesting. And, just watched an interview, a very, again, unprecedented interview where Joe Biden just called in, President Biden called into Morning Joe to talk about 17 to 20 minutes of talking points. I'm not sure if it was helpful, but it was a very defiant Joe Biden, which we keep seeing. I mean, the more people come out, the more he says, yeah, I'm staying in. So, I mean, I don't see this going anywhere unless there is something extraordinary that happens at the convention in August. But other than that, I just think it's here. And to point to Representative Richie Torres from New York, he has a recent tweet out that suggests, you're just like messing up your political career by coming out at this point because he's not leaving.
But
It's like,
that's Kadia, as you well know, just the fact that they're just back from break. Congress, these are the first time that House and Senate Democrats are going to be sitting together in a room after this 11 days of, oh no, not again, or oh, that was not what we needed. We needed a much stronger showing. We needed, they wanted this defiant Joe Biden, uh the dark Brandon or whatever that was going to come out swinging and was going to be in charge and able to either hit Trump on some sort of policy points at that debate, or really dazzle George Stephanopoulos and really get rid of the, oh no, he's too scatterbrained or feeble, or just not all there, or just not even up to the challenge. And instead of that, we're just getting these drips and drabs of letters and possible meetings or whatever, but none of that means anything until you get into the room and you can do a head count and say, all right, there's 15 of us, there's 30 of us, there's the entire progressive wing, whatever. We've got enough to we've reached critical mass, and now we can, organize properly and say, hey guys, we gotta reset, we gotta do whatever, versus just sending text messages back and forth that never go anywhere. And it's like, maybe we'll coup tomorrow, maybe, but let's see what happens.
Cooing tomorrow, right? So yeah, I reported in today's newsletter that members had privately said that there would be a plethora, or the floodgates would open when members came back to Congress. So you're in terms of like whether or not they'll publicly put out statements saying that they want him to step down. I'm also hearing from sources that this will largely be a portion of or a large portion of the frontliners who are in these, really tenuous election situations where they're in Republican districts and they need to save face by saying that he needs to step down. I think what we should be paying attention to is leadership, whether or not they budge, obviously, and members of the Congressional Black Caucus who have notoriously stood behind Joe Biden. I mean, it's very known that Jim Clyburn was the kingmaker, or the person that kind of switched during during the 2020 election and kind of made Joe Biden the man. This is something that was endemic during the Clinton years also. The CBC, kind of unanimously backed Clinton when his back was against the wall with his various scandals. So those are the things to look for. Again, whether that happens, if a slew of people come out because they've met with their colleagues and they're on the same page, I do not know if that will change the calculus at all.
Is there like, watching this, and Biden himself is so, I mean, he's so storied as a political creature. And I mean, if you, and we go back and look at the 2020 race, and he was nimble back then. He knew how to get under Trump's skin. So this is like, it's baked into him. It is part of his very being. And I keep wondering, it's so bad watching this. Like, it is amazing to see how poorly the Democratic Party and the leadership have been handling all of this for, God, going on more than a week now. I mean, this is the whole 4th of July holiday was spent around this. Um, there's a conspiratorial part of me, the Joe Rogan podcast part of me, wants to say maybe there's 4-dimensional chess going on here. Is this an Illuminati play? Like, is everybody just secretly saying, like, behind the scenes, laughing and speaking in complete sentences and, floating Parkinson stories? Because in reality, there's like some amazing plan here that actually elevates Biden with conspiratorial minded voters? Or is this just total chaos? Like, it just feels like there has to be something more here. It can't possibly be this bad.
I can't talk to any conspiratorial gatherings or notions, but, I will say that I think it's not lost on members of Congress how big of a moment this is. And whether or not you push out an incumbent in a race this close to an election. As I said, frontliners are going to frontline, right? They are going to put their positions out there. I don't know if they're, and I will say that members, to your point, members being at home and in their districts over the holiday season often have excuses on not, talking to each other or whatever, being off from work. So, I mean, it makes sense that things will progress. I don't think it's as organized as people think it is. I don't think it is planned out. I think people are still musing. When I talk to members, when I talked to members a few days ago, the overwhelming sentiment was like, oh, well, they're kind of waiting on this person to see what they're gonna say. So now that they're back again together, we'll see. Again, my point will remain. I don't know if it changes anything in the administration or Biden's decision. He seems pretty dug in at this point. And how helpful is that for the party is what people should be considering.
Is there a way to salvage this? I mean, what's your sense of this, Warren? I mean, you're a Hill rat as well. I mean, like, what happens here? This is insane.
Well, I think a lot of this is airing of grievances. As Kadia said, it's the frontliners who are kind of leading this because, they're nervous about their races. There's others who've, some of the Democratic rank and file have said, all right, look, it looks like the Senate is toast. That map is lost. We can't get anything there. So, we have to win the House to serve as the only check because, now some members are saying, oh, we know Trump's going to win too. So, having but the coalition is a weird one because you've got Congressman Quigley, these people who are
Dogged.
yeah, they want to love Biden. That they
Yeah.
say that they're not saying that he's a terrible candidate or anything. They'll say, hey, he did a great job. He carried us this far, but his time has passed. We need to move on. It's time to move on. Angie Craig, some of these people, and I think there's even a couple of committee chairs. But meanwhile, Hakeem Jeffries, as you said, Jim Clyburn still very much saying, he's our guy. Nancy Pelosi is kind of towed the line and said, well, maybe some cognitive testing, but for the most part, we got to stay the course. And then over in the Senate, all right, Mark Warner is trying to pull people together, but now who's Biden's biggest defender? John Fetterman won't allow anyone to bully President Biden because it's like, hey man, this guy is still doing what we asked him to do, and shame on you all for going after him for maybe losing a step or whatever. Like that, we can't just throw away a great leader just because of a bad debate or a
Yeah.
less stellar performance. So the fault lines are very weird, and yeah, I just think some people are gonna just say what they're gonna say and see if that moves the needle. If it doesn't, I think they just fall back in line because you can't. Right, the primary was the primary, and there, Dean Phillips isn't going to come out of nowhere. Marianne Williamson isn't suddenly going to, have an amazing base. So it's like, where do we go from here? But I think they're just frustrated and they want to say things. So, let's
Yes.
for a little
Yeah.
bit.
Also, can I add to that
Yeah.
this speaks to how sensitive this issue is for many members? I think they're weighing in based on their personal experiences. John Fetterman, obviously, he talked about having a
Yes.
debate and having speech assistants with him during his debate. Like this is, I think people see their own either their relatives or themselves in this position, right? it, it, but also, I think members are also considering donors who are probably calling them right now, asking them what they should be doing. And again, they've been home for 2 weeks or a week and a half.
Yeah.
They're also hearing from constituents if they've done any town halls, like, are you backing this guy or should I still? I know one member who told me that a constituent actually asked them what they should be doing. So they're relying on their members of Congress. So it is a very, I guess that speaks to all the chaos around it, right? It is a very sensitive thing because we're talking about someone's age and mental acuity, and it's going to be interesting. But that does there is a point to say that at some point there's going to be, like, they will have missed the moment, right, to react
Yes.
or
Yes.
make a big stance out of all of
It is like, man, I was back home in Baltimore. I grew up in suburban Baltimore and was hanging out with some old friends. And, for people who are, our age, middle aged professionals, our contemporaries were their response, the normie response, civilian people who are not involved in politics, wondering what the hell is going on in Washington? What the hell is going on right now? Um, and for them especially, I mean, a good number of a lot of my friends are, would call themselves libertarians, saying, uh, deeply worried after that Supreme Court ruling that Trump will be able to act as a dictator, that it will be more empowered to act as a king should he come back in. But I was really surprised by one of the, you can kind of get a reflection of from your constituents of what you're hearing coming back in through the information channels. What people are talking about. One of the parents there, the older generation, is probably in his early 70s. Suburban Baltimore business, Reagan conservative, not a fan of Trump. We're talking about this in the Supreme Court ruling and presidential immunity. And he mentioned to me, he said, well, Biden's already a dictator, so that's not new. And I was kind of shocked by that because this is somebody who's conservative who doesn't like Trump and probably won't vote for Biden. But it was baked in his mind that Biden is already a dictator because of his use of executive orders. And that has me wondering how much of this is filtering back through voters, through constituents. Because, I mean, obviously, clearly that is not the case. Biden is not a dictator. Using executive orders to govern is not preferable and has been done for more than a decade now. But I was really shocked by that, and I kind of wonder how much these members are hearing that too.
I mean, this was a conservative talking, right?
Oh yeah, oh
Yeah, so
yes,
I mean, I feel like that's a big talking point on the right, about Biden. I'm sorry. Yeah, that feels like a big talking point coming out of Republican camp. So I'm not sure if that influences any, what do you call it? Swing voters on the
Mhm.
cusp of, whether they'll decide or not. Most presidents use executive orders. It's the way of governing because
Right.
Congress can't actually do anything anymore.
I was shocked to hear that. It was really bizarre. Um, well, I wanted let's okay. So the big hypothetical here, right, is that we get Kamala Harris as the Vice President. Kamala Harris ascends to the top of the ticket. This has been a lot of the talk. If Biden does step aside, how should he step aside if he's pushed out? However it happens. Um, what are you hearing? What are you hearing about that? Is that still the most talked about game plan here? What's your sense of that?
Yeah, so people seem pretty split on whether or not VP Kamala Harris is up to the task. Initially, I was hearing a few days ago, she wasn't really a good communicator during her time uh, as vice president. She was very different from the person she was in the Senate, and also people took issue. I don't know. Some people remembered her like leaving the race, the presidential race in
Mm,
2020 pretty early. And so those were kind of the mumblings I'm hearing. Since then, I feel like people have warmed to her, probably because they realized several reasons. She is the de facto inheritor of all of Biden's fundraising, right? Like, so
yes.
the transition would be much more easy than, let's say, grabbing a governor from
Mm.
Michigan or Maryland, right? And then there's also this, Biden is increasingly known to, or or Democrats in general. Black people are known to vote Democratic. There's some slippage apparently based on polling, which we'll probably get into later.
Oh
But
yeah.
at the same time, it would, I think, be considered a slight to a Black vice president if she is not the presumptive replacement of Joe Biden.
Yes. Warren, are you going to knock her out and try to become the?
I don't know that, much like Kadia, I mean, there was some, some of the chatter was, it makes sense to that we elevate Kamala, but at the same time, there's plenty of, it's not unanimous. Like there are still people floating the let's bring in Gretchen Whitmer, let's bring in, you know, other governors, you know, and I think I wrote about it today. There's a bunch of Democratic organizers who started this thing called Pass the Torch, and you know they don't name a nominee. That they just say, look, Biden needs to step down. He's been a wonderful guy, but you know it's time to move on. And in their, you know, they're starting this online petition, and in their framing, they say, you know, we could have a vice president who's already made history, or many of these swing state governors who have you know helped us, you know, keep blue states blue and that type of thing. So they're, you know, they're looking past Biden at the next generation of leaders. But yeah, I don't think there's a groundswell to make Kamala Harris the necessarily, and I think, like Kadia said, that has enraged some people who are just like, well, you know, then why are we? What is this structure? If it wasn't meant for her to maybe move up, then you know, why did you sell us that bill of goods? And
Right.
others who said, well, you know, she's not ready. It's not her time. You know, we can do better. But I think people are past this placeholder president. You know, they're still angry that Biden said he would be this transition, this bridge, and
Yeah.
now he's refusing to leave. And they're like, well, you know, fool me once, yeah, but it's not going to happen again. So I think that that's also feeding into some of this time to go. You know, let's build now because you know all is lost. So I think that the Trump coming back is really freaking everyone out. But that I don't know. I don't know that Kamala benefits directly from it right now, anyway.
I don't, one thing I don't understand about this is rationally a lot of the concerns that Kamala is not up to the task of getting destroyed by Trump. And it's when I see a lot of these arguments, it's like, well, she is going to be uniquely attacked more than anybody else. Well, that's ridiculous because whoever the Democratic nominee will be destroyed one way or another by Trump and the MAGA, authoritarian social media meme universe. Like that's not different. That's whoever you put in there. I kind of wonder how much she actually benefits here because she's already been peppered so much over the last 4 years. I mean, you can see the vacillation between how Trump in his stream of consciousness truth media social media post says I'm fighting, I'm taking on Biden. All right, now I'm going to take on cackling Kamala or whatever he says, the laugh thing. um but I don't like, to me it doesn't seem, that's not, to me it's not a convincing argument that Trump's going to beat the heck out of her, because that's what's going to happen no matter who you put in there. That's I don't it's like I don't know if anybody's better positioned to handle this.
Yeah, to be clear, when I talk to sources and even members of Congress, their argument is that she can't win against Trump. So
Mm,
why, you know, that was kind of the hesitation initially, that she cannot win. But, since then, there's been polling suggesting that she's polling higher, right, than
yeah.
Biden against Trump. Not to say that she'll win. However, I think that could have calmed some folks and kind of given them or her a winning chance in their eyes. But for me, it wasn't about like whether she would get beat up. That's not what I was talking about. I was talking about whether or
Yeah.
not she could win the race, win the election.
Polling, people love polling. It's like we universally, every election we go through and the polling misses by a pretty significant amount, and we always come out in like December and January, and we have a number of Harvard forums with everybody who polled this incorrectly, and we all say, wow, we're never doing that again, and then we go
Yeah.
right back to using it. And
I mean, it's pretty incredible, though. It has to be influencing some Democrats, right? We saw the member from Washington and Jared Golden from Maine come out to say, hey, we understand Trump is probably going to win, obviously, in those competitive districts. But I thought that was one interesting argument, that they already conceded that Trump is going to win. So
It's a handful of Jeff Van Drews right there.
Well, I think the most interesting polling would be the Rolodex of Trump supporting Black celebrities that I'm sure have been blowing up Kadia's phone in the past week and a half
Yes.
since she spent a little time with them getting to know the Trump of yesteryear, that little window into how he surrounded himself with these friends, the Mike Tysons, the Don Kings of the world. So I gotta ask you, have you been on blast since the debate, since have they been touching base about how I told you our man's gonna win, the other guy can't stand it, can't take the heat, or have they been silent and allowed you a little space, a little room to
I don't know. A lot of people just really liked and appreciated the story, I would say. You know, I feel like there was an interesting twist because when the story came out, a lot of people harped on that quote where he says, I have black friends, I know these black people, so of course I can't be racist, which is, excuse me. I mean, it is a talking point that is often criticized because it comes from people who don't know black people, right? Who don't have black friends. And I thought my reporting was suggesting completely the opposite. Like, here are a group of men who support Donald Trump, not based on anything other than they knew him from back in the days and they consider him a pal that they golf with. I thought it was an interesting thread to follow. I thought it was, I tried to give a window to a younger generation of the same, background
Yes.
that also look at him as this person that is, that shows strength. And then when you compare what's happening with Biden now, it's kind of interesting. Like, yeah, very, and I put this in the story, you know, Trump, a lot of us know that Trump won a lot of the country based on his appeal to working class people in certain areas of the country, right? He appealed to them and said, you know what, no one's paying attention to you, the Washington elites, this and that, and I'm your guy. Why do people think that Black people are immune to that? I have no idea. But it is the same message reaching a very similar person. And if you think that there are young Black men and women who don't look up to, the Mike Tysons of the world or the Darryl Strawberries of the world, then I think you're kind of missing the point.
Here's the quote. It's such a great piece, and for all our 24sight pod listeners, go check it out. It's the headline is this from June 14th. They see strength, the Black sports icon shaping Donald Trump's take on race, politics, and masculinity. And this is such a good read. It is so I love it. Here's the quote from when Kadia sat down with Trump at Mar-a-Lago. He says, quote, I have so many Black friends that if I were a racist, they wouldn't be friends. They would know better than anybody and fast. They would not be with me for 2 minutes if they thought I was a racist. And I'm not racist. End quote.
nailed it.
Yeah, it was, like, I had obviously asked him, what do you say to people about, when they call you racist, how do you address that? Because people in the Black community feel that way. And that was his response. But also, again, um, this is a common trope that's used by people who don't know Black people. So I thought it was funny that he said that. And obviously every outlet out there also thought it was funny. But, I don't know. I thought the interview at large was, revealing and just gave some insight on to how he's thinking about this and probably how his campaign is also thinking about the Black outreach. That was my initial
Yes.
request, trying to understand what they're doing to get Black outreach, to benefit off of this predictive polling that's suggesting that Black men are slipping away from the party and admire and are going with Trump.
I mean, what you said there about, I mean, about this being, instead of looking at the dichotomy as race, um, looking at it as class, and I mean, so true because I mean, the numbers have been, and they've been working on this for, I mean, basically his entire time in elected office and politics. Um, Trying to eat into the black vote, and the Hispanic vote. And I mean, look, you interviewed, you got Daryl Strawberry, you got Mike Tyson. Did you? I think you got. Did you talk with Don King? Is he cogent these days?
He is. I spoke to him at briefly. I later understood that he was giving the New York Times an interview, but I went to one of his fights. Didn't really get to speak to him, but I did talk to his niece very briefly, who said, there's a big poster of Don King in our living room, so like a cutout, an actual like life size cutout. So he's obviously a fan. I think probably the most compelling was Mike Tyson, because he
Mm.
seems to be really engaged with people, in the hood. He and I are both from Brooklyn. So to me, he gave, I guess, one of the stronger, the most insight into how people on the ground are feeling. And even if they don't support, his point was like, even if they don't support him, they acknowledge, well, he certainly loves you. And secondly, their next question is like, well, how is he, right? Because they want to know this guy. I mean, there's a reason why
Yeah.
Trump has like a Wikipedia page of all the rap songs where he's mentioned, right? He has been in, he has been a figure in Black culture for many, many years.
Yes.
And I just think it's weird that people don't pay attention to that or dismiss it as if it's like not a thing.
I love watching ESPN Plus on Hulu. They got the classic fights, classic boxing. All right. I mean, they go all the way back to like Jake LaMotta and first Sugar Ray. And and if you watch like the 80s, you can catch some Tyson fights, you can get some Holyfield. I mean, you watch the biggest fights, they're all at Trump Plaza. Oftentimes I see him down in the front row. I mean, he is baked into, especially, and the other part of this, which you delve into, is the masculinity. I mean, he is baked into masculine culture, which we see so much of, especially on the right. I mean, when he's doing the walk-ins now with Dana White and UFC, like that plays, and it's shocking to me people don't get that. You're muted. Get in, get in.
Sorry. There's also this thing around hustle, right? I talked to a 60-something-year-old boxer who is Mike Tyson, right? But I also talked to a 30-something-year-old boxer who had just fought on the big ticket of one of Don King's fights, and his thing was, "Oh, that's my man." He actually used the N word, but he said, "That's my man," and that, like he hustles like I hustle, or he works, he takes care of business like I take care of business. So they see him as this person that's like always out and about, whether he's running for president, hosting the Apprentice, or just being a mogul in New York. It is something that people are identifying with, and I think, again, my point was just to bring it to light and say, well, this is a thing, this is what they see.
It's
And I
so
think
good.
part of that is to you mentioned the hustle, and Trump, calls these people his friends, but the undercurrent is they all made money off each other. Herschel Walker was on The Apprentice. Trump tried to buy, a JV NFL team. He had money in football. He had casinos where Mike Tyson and Don King promoted fights and did things. So it's not like they just met at the corner barber shop and all just decided to hang out together. Their fortunes are all intertwined. And, they made money off Trump. He made money off them. And if there's one thing we know about Trump, he loves making money off of anything, be it an indictment, a boxing match, a golf tournament. If it's for sale, Trump wants a part of it. So, I mean, friends or not, they're willing to do business with him because, cash is king. So.
Well, yeah, especially in the 80s and 90s, these were very transactional relationships, right? But then for them to like still defend him after all of this, and actually go golfing with him. But also, I was talking about this, you know, and this happens in journalism, I'll say, like there are, sometimes we don't grow up with diversity, right? But then we go into these careers, we venture off in these careers, and we meet people who become our friends based on like the entertainment. In his case, it was based on the entertainment industry. So I think, yes, I pointed to celebrities, right? Or to athletes, but these were not like just regular athletes. These were huge celebrities. And yes, there definitely was some transition. There definitely, the relationship started off transactional, but like, what's Down Strawberry doing right now? Or what's LT doing right now? Other than golfing with Trump or somebody in the Trump family. I think it's interesting that they've maintained these friendships. And you know what? Those are his friends. Like I said, maybe in Queens, he didn't grow up with like Black folks, but he certainly developed these relationships in the entertainment world.
Makes all kinds.
Oh man, this friggin' election. Jesus, Mother Mary.
We still have months to go.
I know it's not over yet.
I know I'm a congressional reporter. I'm not really sure how all this happened, but
you're like, I just want to be in the Capitol. Like, what the hell happened? Okay, guys, I'm gonna wrap this here. All right, Kadia, where can we find your work? What's the best way to look you up?
So I am on X at Kadia Goba. It's KADIAGOBA. But I am I'm a reporter at Semafor. I cover Congress and obviously the campaign now. But and that's semafor.com, SEMAFOR.com. You can't miss me. I'm a political reporter there. I'm under the politics headline, and you'll see my stuff in our daily newsletter as well, called Principles, that drops around between 6:30 and 6:45 every morning.
Awesome.
And sometimes you pal around with lesser known reporters at like what correspondence dinner events or catch rides to places with lesser known political reporters.
When I have the energy, you might see me at an after party somewhere or a dinner. Thanks for doing it, guys.
All right, guys. For the 24sight pod, I'm Tom LoBianco, Warren Rojas, and good friend Kadia Goba signing off. We still got 4 months to go. Keep it here, folks. We'll see you.
Thanks for having me.